You are amazing.
Wasn't over. Still isn't over.
A good movie kiss is something that all other real kisses should aspire to. You know, it should be a kiss that you fantasize about, like, someday someone's gonna kiss me that way.
All this time, that's what I've been missing.
The best movie kisses make you believe that love is real.
My heart says yes.
And it doesn't hurt if they're good looking.
What makes a great on-screen kiss? In my opinion, romance.
So what happened after he climbed up the tower and rescued her?
Tension.
People do fall in love. People do belong to each other.
And rain.
Do I get to say thank you this time?
This was really hard to narrow down because there are thousands of kisses in cinematic history, but we've got a good list.
Yeah, pretty great.
Action! Live on set.
What is your name?
Edward?
Edward, that's my favorite name in the whole world.
No.
I tell you what, this is fate, Edward. That's what this is.
In 1990, Pretty Woman was the #1 rom-com of the year, earning nearly $180 million and a Best Actress nomination for Julia Roberts.
Slippery little suckers.
The 22-year-old actress played Vivian Ward, a Hollywood prostitute with a heart of gold, while 41-year-old Richard Gere co-starred as Edward Lewis, a wealthy corporate raider too busy for romance.
So here's what happens. Julia Roberts is a prostitute. Hooker is a term they use. One night, up drives this fancy sports car, or more accurately, lurches this fancy sports car. He's lost, he doesn't know what he's doing. He sort of lurches to the curb, trying to figure out where he is.
Hey, Sugar, you looking for a date?
No, I want to find Beverly Hills. Can you give me directions?
Sure. For $5.
Vivian strolls over to him and, tries to make a little transaction.
You can't charge me for directions.
I can do anything I want to, baby. I ain't lost.
And the rest is semi-problematic movie history.
So she doesn't just give him directions, she hops in and personally escorts him to his hotel. Long story short, he pays her $300 to spend the night, and they have sex.
With Pretty Woman, there's a twist on what maybe was the classic romantic film question of will they or won't they get together? They get together physically, like pretty early on, like they have sex. But that physical intimacy is really only the first step towards their emotional intimacy. So, they have sex, they haven't actually kissed yet.
What do you want?
What do you do?
Everything. But I don't kiss on the mouth.
Though they do have sex right away, she does have this rule, no kissing on the lips when she's on the job. This way, it's not personal, it's just business.
Edward is just so charmed by Vivian that the next morning he wakes up with this fantastic idea.
Vivian, I have a business proposition for you.
He'd love for her to stay with him for the week, attend some business meetings, basically be his companion for the week for $3,000, which doesn't sound too bad to her.
I would have stayed for $2,000.
I would have paid $4.
So as they spend more time together, and they're clearly getting along, and there's chemistry, they're both trying to tell themselves, like, this is business, I'm just doing this. Edward's saying, I just need this woman here for my business transactions.
This isn't a date, it's business.
And Vivian is saying, I'm just doing this for the $3,000.
All right. I'll meet you in the lobby, but only because you're paying me to.
But they eventually fall for one another, and it's genuine.
There's something in this box. I don't want you to get too excited. It's only on loan.
The kiss happens 3/4 of the way into the movie. Edward finally breaks down and takes Vivian out for their first real date. Then they decide to spend a full day together off the clock. So they just had this amazing date, then they had this great day off together. They're clearly falling in love. Then that night, they head back to the hotel.
At this point, they're almost acting like a married couple in terms of, like, she's wearing a nice nightgown and she's, getting ready for bed and she's, like, coming to bed. Like, it's a real relationship at this point.
He falls asleep, she sits down in the bed next to him and sort of eases into it.
She softly kisses his lips. He wakes up pleasantly surprised because she's actually done the thing that she's sworn to never do, which is kiss on the mouth. And then things get really steamy.
So the reason the kiss is such a huge moment is because it's finally the moment that they allow each other to admit, like, I'm in love with you, You're not just my client. You're not just the prostitute I hired. I see you as a real person. I'm in love with you. And when you're watching it, you're like, oh, she kissed him on the lips. Oh my God. You know, because you know that's a big deal for her.
It seems like a ridiculous premise. Hooker meets multimillionaire, gets swept off her feet. They live happily ever after. But it really is a stuff of fairy tales. It's Cinderella, it's just Cinderella happens to be a hooker. No judgment.
Wow, great reflexes.
In 2002, Spider-Man was the #1 film of the year, raking in an amazing $400 million at the box office.
Right from the beginning of the movie, we know exactly what's going on. Peter Parker, nerd next door, in love with the gorgeous Mary Jane.
Can I take your picture? I need one with a student in it.
Sure. 27-year-old Tobey Maguire starred as the high school outcast turned superhero, Peter Parker, while his teenage crush, a next-door neighbor, Mary Jane Watson, was played by 20-year-old Kirsten Dunst.
I cried like a baby when you played Cinderella.
Peter, that was first grade.
Well, even so.
He's like the nerdy kid who is largely invisible at school. She is popular and beautiful and clearly going places and very glamorous.
It's interesting because they've known each other for a long time, but now he gets this second chance to meet her for the first time as Spider-Man.
The city gathers for an event called Unity Day, which gets attacked by the Green Goblin. She ends up falling from, a tower and needs saving, and Spider-Man swings into frame out of nowhere, whisks her away.
He saves her life, and she's into it.
Wait! Who are you?
Not only has Peter Parker been pining after Mary Jane forever, when she's finally into him, he can't even be with her because he can't reveal his real identity.
You know who I am.
I do.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Because with great power comes great responsibility and no girlfriend. I mean, talk about frustrating. Ugh.
The kiss happens 80 minutes into the 2-hour movie, just after Spider-Man saves Mary Jane for the second time.
Mary Jane walks down this dark alley. She gets cornered by a group of pretty rough guys. But once again, Spider-Man comes and saves her.
So Spider-Man comes out, beats up these 4 guys, but he's not wearing his mask. So he has to run away, puts on the mask, and all of a sudden appears upside down right next to her.
You have a knack for saving my life.
But their faces are perfectly lined up, and she immediately starts flirting.
You are amazing.
Nice to have a fan.
So it's raining, she's soaking wet, there's a lot of sexual tension, which is pretty unusual for a superhero movie.
Do I get to say thank you this time?
She decides that this is the moment when she's gonna thank him. And then that leads to one of the most memorable kisses in Hollywood history.
You realize that you are kind of watching the coolest moment ever in nerdy Peter Parker's life is happening right now.
She pulls back his mask. They end up making out upside down. It's epic, but it requires a lot of flexibility.
I've tried to recreate this, it's just never gonna be as sexy as how they do it in Spider-Man.
It's just very romantic, it's very human, it's very character focused. It does sort of give it that added level of being more than an action fest. There is this great romance happening between Mary Jane and Peter. And like any modern day science fiction or fantasy or superhero blockbuster, if it does a romantic moment, it's really kind of chasing this moment in Spider-Man.
I would like to dance with you.
In case you haven't noticed, Winston, baby, I'm old enough to be your mother, okay?
In 1998, How Stella Got Her Groove Back won over audiences with a humorous, heartfelt take on a May-December romance. 40-year-old Angela Bassett starred as Stella Payne, a successful stockbroker and divorced mom who believes she's too busy for love.
Welcome to Jamaica, ladies.
But after joining her best friend on a trip to Jamaica, Stella meets Winston Shakespeare, a handsome young islander and aspiring chef played by 27-year-old Taye Diggs.
You know, if I weren't in my right mind, I'd swear you were trying to hit on me, too.
And you would be right.
Stella is won over by Winston's charm against her will. She really tried to push back, given he looked so young to her.
I'm old enough to be your...
Okay, why don't you just get it out of your system right now? Tell me 3 million times how old we both are. That way I won't have to hear it again for the rest of our lives.
And then she found out that he was so young, 20 when they met. But the chemistry was palpable.
So what are you saying? That you would like to be intimate with me?
And she decided to stop fighting it, and they end up getting together.
There's that sort of, dreamy aspect to their affair when they initially get together. Then they sort of decide to make a go of it back in the real world, and that's when things sort of take a slightly more realistic turn.
This is home.
Stella invites Winston to move in with her in her home in San Francisco. And that is when their differences are put under a microscope.
Did you cry at the end or what?
Well,
actually, we saw that one.
You're kidding.
When they were in paradise in Jamaica, age was not a factor. But once they get back to real life, it does become a factor.
here I am in the prime of my life, and my boyfriend's idea of a romantic evening is watching the Disney Channel while you eat dry cereal. That is, if you're not too busy playing video games with Quincy.
Stella is so conflicted and thinking, is this working, is this not working? But the whole time, Winston is so sweet to her.
What's that?
And one of the things that I love about him is he buys her this woodworking machine because he knows this is something that she loves so much that she doesn't let herself make time for. And when he gives it to her, that's the moment where he decides to propose.
It's just a simple question. All it takes is a yes or a no.
You're super excited, like, go for it, but she doesn't give him an answer right away.
My heart says yes. But just let me give it a little more thought, okay?
And you're wondering, when is it gonna happen?
The kiss happens near the end of the 2-hour film. It's been a week since Winston's proposal, and Stella still hasn't given him an answer.
What's wrong, Winston?
He is getting really frustrated. He's pretty impatient. He put his heart out there for her and hasn't heard anything.
Last week I asked you to marry me, okay? For you to spend the rest of your life with me, and I don't have an answer.
Do we have to talk
now,
about it now?
how long do I have to wait for an answer?
Once she is back home, Stella is in the bathroom. She's brushing her teeth, and there's this beautiful glass shower. Her home is like fat. It is really nice. And Winston is taking a shower, and she's looking over at him.
Stella is thinking to herself, what do I do? Do I marry this person? Do I not? And on some levels, she's so tortured and she's so in her head about it. And she sees Winston in the shower. And she sees Winston in the shower. And she's like, I am getting in there. What am I doing? Am I crazy? Get out of my head and get in the shower.
The kiss is really passionate, and there's steam everywhere, and you can just tell that they're so in love and enthralled with each other in that moment. So I think it's a perfect kiss scene.
So that's how Stella got her groove back. And although she doesn't give him an answer in the shower, she does eventually say yes, and they do get married.
Yes.
Open up your eyes.
Open my eyes?
To what a dog's life can really be. Show you what I mean.
Walt Disney's Lady and the Tramp premiered way back in 1955, but remains one of the most beloved romances ever animated. The classic love story told the tale of two dogs from opposite sides of the tracks. Lady was a purebred Cocker Spaniel well cared for by her upper-class owners, while Tramp was a happy-go-lucky mutt living on the streets.
What a day.
Lady has enjoyed this fantastic life with her owner. She's beloved in the house, and then she finds out that the family is pregnant.
Darling is expecting a wee bairn.
Bairn?
He means a baby, Miss Lady.
Oh.
We see her talking to her dog friends about this baby that's coming. And who overhears her but Tramp?
Just a cute little bundle. of trouble.
This is the first time that Lady meets Tramp, and he tells her her whole life is about to change. Because when that baby comes, she's gonna be second fiddle.
Remember those nice, juicy cuts of beef? Forget them. Leftover baby food.
And of course, when the baby does come, Tramp is exactly right.
Go on now, shoot. Stop, get out of here.
But it's even worse than that, because a dog-hating aunt, this awful lady, comes to stay and take care of the baby while the parents go away.
Sorry I'm late, dears. Hope I haven't kept you waiting.
And the aunt brings along these two Siamese cats who, in the tradition of early Disney movies, are pretty racist stereotypes.
We are Siamese, if you please.
But we don't have to go into that now. Anyway, these cats have it in for Lady.
So Lady and the cats get into a little altercation, they make a ton of noise, they make a huge mess, and when the aunt comes, the cats of course pretend like Lady was the one who hurt them.
So the aunt sees this and immediately takes Lady to a pet store to get a muzzle put on her face.
I want a muzzle, a good strong muzzle.
Of course, Lady doesn't like this one bit, and this is when she runs away.
She has a run-in with these really mean dogs who are kind of just surrounding her and about to attack. And that's when Tramp comes to the rescue.
After Tramp rescues Lady, he starts to show Lady around and how he lives his life in the freedom of not having to live in a home.
He shows her, this is everything you could be doing. This is everywhere you could be roaming if you were free like me.
Hey, Tony's! The very place for a very special occasion.
The kiss happens about halfway into the film after Tramp brings Lady to his favorite Italian restaurant.
Now, tell me, what's your pleasure?
Listen, Tramp has game. Like, he takes the posh chick to an alley, not even the restaurant, but a pop-up shop behind the restaurant. That's what we call swag, Tramp.
Uh-huh.
And the restaurant owner decides to play the ultimate wingman in movie history.
Now here you are, the best spaghetti in a town.
And hooks him up with a prize bowl of spaghetti.
It's a beautiful night.
And then the owner comes out and starts singing to him.
I mean, give it up for the restaurant owner. That's how you hook up a friend.
So they're on this date, and it's totally normal that dogs are on a date. It's fine. This is when this beautiful moment happens between them. They both start eating the same spaghetti noodle, and they don't know what's happening, and they come closer and closer until they kiss. And it's beautiful. They're a little shy about it, but it kind of melts my heart. You think it can't get any sweeter than this, but then he nudges over the meatball to Lady. Super giving, so nice, and I can't even get a text back.
If you don't see the kiss in Lady and the Tramp and think that that is the cutest thing you've ever seen, then you don't have a heart or a soul.
Hold it.
Doing all right, aren't we? I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. There were times I just wanted to kill her, but
Likewise.
couldn't take the shot.
In 2005, Mr. and Mrs. Smith made more than $180 million at the box office while igniting one of the most notorious real-life romances in Hollywood history.
When we meet Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they've been married for a while, and like the romance is kind of dead between them.
Honey, would you
5 more minutes.
It's sort of like the joke of being married for too long come to life. They're seeing a marriage therapist.
How often do you have sex?
I don't understand the question.
And you see two of the most ridiculously sexy people on the planet talking about the lack of passion in their marriage.
Yeah, I'm lost. Is this a 1 to 10 thing?
And you're like, sure, whatever, of course. But then you see that they really do have this sort of weird, sad Connecticut Stepford marriage where they're completely kind of disconnected from each other.
If you don't like him, we can take him back.
Okay, I don't like him.
You'll get used to him.
42-year-old Brad Pitt and 30-year-old Angelina Jolie co-starred as John and Jane Smith, an upper-middle-class couple keeping a pretty big secret from each other. They're both highly trained professional assassins.
So their covers are, he owns a successful construction company, and she is a high-end tech consultant.
They have absolutely no idea about their respective secret lives until they're hired to kill the same person.
Jane, it's your husband.
Once they find out they're both assassins, they are actually assigned to kill each other.
Jane, stop the car! Now!
It's very awkward in the marriage.
There's something interesting there about this idea that they've been married for so long and there's still something they don't know about each other. And that's kind of what the movie is about, is finding that next layer of marital intimacy.
The kiss comes 80 minutes into the 2-hour film. After a potentially deadly shootout at home, John and Jane suddenly remember why they fell in love in the first place.
You still alive, baby?
They have been trying to kill each other in a, like, you know, not in the kind of funny, like, haha, husband and wife, like, one of these days, but in a real, like, they are going to assassinate each other.
You ain't as bad as you're cooking, sweetheart.
And, you know, it's in their home. And so, you know, there's that great layer of kind of like, you know, the home where they probably had a lot of, like, emotional arguments back and forth has now become a place of a, you know, super movie assassin showdown fight.
I love the way that scene is choreographed. In some ways, it's supposed to be a dance of death because one of them's supposed to end up dead, but really it's foreplay. It's just really dangerous, bloody, glass-shattering foreplay.
Who's your daddy now?
They're like beating each other up, just like blood everywhere, and they look for their guns, and they each grab their gun at the same time, and they're just pointed at each other.
There's so much tension built up when these two are face to face, about to kill each other.
You kind of don't know what they are going to do. Are they going to kill each other? Are they going to kiss?
And Brad is the one, ever the romantic, who decides to drop his gun.
Can't do it.
Angelina Jolie as Mrs. Smith is a little more committed.
Don't! Come on!
She's like, no, she wants to, she like has this mission that she has to fulfill.
You want it? It's yours.
She's overcome with emotion. She starts tearing up. He swipes her gun away, and then they just go at it, which is what couples do after they try to kill each other.
And they have this crazy kiss,
And they pretty much destroy the entire house. They're making out on the counter, things are breaking, glasses shattering, and they don't really care at all.
It's so over the top and like hilarious and kind of funny, but in a way, it does kind of get at that feeling of like, okay, like we've been married for a long time, we've been through a lot together, we're literally trying to kill each other, and now we love each other even more than we used to. So I love that kind of comedy of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
Is everything okay? We heard an awful ruckus.
Yeah, couldn't be better.
Don't you just love it?
Love what?
Tiffany's.
Breakfast at Tiffany's premiered in 1961 and soon became one of the all-time classic rom-coms.
I'd marry you for your money in a minute.
32-year-old Audrey Hepburn played Holly Golightly, a free spirit looking to land a rich husband.
He happens to be the 9th richest man in America under 50.
While the 33-year-old future leader of the A-Team, George Peppard, co-starred as Paul Varjak, a charming but penniless writer.
We first meet Paul when he moves into the Manhattan building of Holly Golightly, and you get the sense that Paul, who's pretty buttoned up and straight-laced, is utterly charmed by her.
How do I look?
Very good. I must say I'm amazed.
Holly is very much like looking for a dude who will like give her the glamorous life. Paul is definitely not going to be that dude.
There's no doubt that there's chemistry between Holly and Paul, and that she likes him and she's intrigued by him and she's curious about him, but she also knows that she wants a rich guy, and Paul is a writer. That's not moneybags.
I've got my check and $10.
But they sort of do kind of get closer within the kind of wonderful rom-com ideal of saying we're definitely not going to get closer.
Holly Golightly does not want attachments with anyone.
Poor old cat. Poor slob. Poor slob without a name.
She has a cat who she names Cat.
The way I look at it, I don't have the right to give him one. We don't belong to each other. We just took up by the river one day.
That's one more way that she keeps distance between herself and anyone she could possibly love.
The kiss happens at the end of the nearly 2-hour film. After becoming fed up with Holly's futile pursuit of wealthy men, Paul finally lays his cards on the table.
Holly, I'm in love with you.
It's one of these great romantic moments in film. They're in a taxi in New York City, it's raining, it's like checking all the boxes, and Paul confesses his love.
So what?
So what? So plenty. I love you.
He tells her that he loves her, he tells her what his feelings are, but Holly's not having it.
I'm not gonna let anyone put me in a cage.
I don't want to put you in a cage. I want to love you.
It's the same thing.
She kind of says that she doesn't want to be loved, that she doesn't deserve to be loved.
I'm like Cat here. We're a couple of no-name slobs. We belong to nobody, and nobody belongs to us. We don't even belong to each other.
And she feels that so much that she takes the cat and throws it outside.
What do you think? This ought to be the right kind of place for a tough guy like you. Garbage cans, rats galore.
Basically saying, we're both unlovable, we're both loners, we can't count on anyone.
And in the middle of a rainstorm, and like very traumatizing if you're a cat person, as I am.
You know what's wrong with you? You're chicken. You've got no guts.
For Paul, that kind of becomes like the last straw of, like, how could you possibly do this?
You're afraid to stick out your chin and say, okay, life's a fact. People do fall in love, because that's the only chance anybody's got for real happiness.
Holly kind of realizes that actually something is formulating, that like she's gonna miss Cat the cat, and probably she'll also miss Paul too. And so this person who's kind of tried so hard to approach the world with this armor around her is suddenly like, no way, okay, like I can't do this.
Where's the cat?
I don't know.
So in the end, she does go out. She decides she's not gonna let Cat just, rough it on the streets of New York by itself.
So Holly's soaked, Paul is soaked. They find the cat down the back alley, which, is incredible. Can you just imagine, like, God, how easy is it to just, like, throw a cat outside of New York and lose it forever?
Of course, they have this wonderful kiss, and we all swoon. The kiss between Holly Golightly and Paul is one of those wonderful, beautiful Hollywood kisses because they don't come by it easily. There's so much emotion that led up to that moment.
This is a one-shot thing we got going on here.
It's nobody's business but ours.
In 2005, the critically acclaimed Brokeback Mountain received 8 Academy Award nominations, including a pair of Best Actor nods for 26-year-old Heath Ledger and 25-year-old Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeehaw! Gyllenhaal played Jack Twist, while Ledger co-starred as Ennis Del Mar, 2 seasonal ranch hands who take summer jobs tending sheep on a mountain in Wyoming.
Jack Twist.
Ennis.
When Jack and Ennis meet, there is this sort of unspoken chemistry between them. Like, they both clearly feel it, but this is not something that they're A, used to feeling, or B, used to expressing.
This ain't no rodeo, cowboy.
It's the 60s. They're in Wyoming. It's a very conservative place. They're cowboys. This is not where homosexuality is accepted or even talked about.
You may be a sinner, but I ain't yet had the opportunity.
But on the other hand, they're pretty isolated. There's nobody around. And eventually, these feelings come to the surface in a very sort of passionate way.
Brokeback Mountain was just this one place where Ennis and Jack could be themselves and be in love with each other and show their love for one another. And sadly, the rest of the world was not a place where they could do that.
Well, I guess I'll see you around, huh?
Right. One of the most heartbreaking parts about Brokeback Mountain is that their love only exists on the mountain, and they have to return back to their lives, pretend it never happened.
Both of them get married, both of them basically start families, and both of them try to move on, but in the back of their minds, they're always thinking of Brokeback.
Hey, Ennis, you know somebody named Jack?
Then Jack sends Ennis a postcard and says, hey, I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods, I'll come see you.
And, immediately, Ennis is actually pretty thrilled. He's just not the kind of guy who shows it.
The kiss happens roughly halfway into the film. It's been 4 years since their summer on Brokeback Mountain, and the lovers are finally reunited outside of Ennis's home in Wyoming.
So Jack shows up, and Ennis could not be happier.
Jack Twist.
He sort of rushes out of his apartment, comes down the stairs, and they embrace in this hug, and it's clear from that hug
you know, they pull apart a little and it's clear that they want to kiss. Ennis is so desperate to kiss him that he sort of pulls Jack to the side where they can sort of be obscured, and they have this passionate kiss.
It's so romantic, and it's just devastating because there's so much emotion behind it.
It's not a movie kiss in the traditional sense of like birds are twirling and the soundtrack rises. There's a lot of grief in it and loss and all these years of missing each other and not being able to live their lives in public.
You just want to live in that moment forever because they're happy, and it's been so long since they've had that feeling.
I love you. I really love you.
Ditto.
In 1990, Ghost was the second highest grossing movie of the year, making more than $215 million at the box office. 28-year-old Demi Moore starred as Molly Jensen, a young artist who's very much in love with her banker boyfriend, Sam Wheat, played by 38-year-old Patrick Swayze.
Just let the clay slide between your fingers.
Everything's going really great for Sam, and then the worst happens.
Your wallet, give it.
He is on a dark alley in New York, and a mugger comes up to rob him. And of course, being like the man's man he is, he tries to like fight him off, and then the mugger shoots him, and he ends up dying.
Hold on, baby.
The fundamental tension in the film is that she's still alive, he's somewhere in this purgatory, they're still in love, but they can't connect.
So the plot purpose of the movie, it's no longer just about Sam trying to reconnect with the love of his life. It's also a kind of thriller aspect to it, that he's trying to kind of protect her.
Molly?
From this bad guy, this worst guy ever, Tony Goldwyn as Carl.
Carl was Sam's business partner and best friend.
Can you keep a secret?
Yeah, sure.
But when Sam becomes a ghost, he finds out that Carl is this really bad guy.
$80,000, that money is mine.
So it turns out that Carl is wrapped up in this whole embezzling scheme.
They're gonna bury you right next to Jimmy Hoffa.
And not only is he responsible for Sam's death, but by the end of the movie, he's also threatening to kill Molly.
I swear to God, I'll kill her!
And of course, Carl starts freaking out because he's in this climactic fight with a ghost who has supernatural powers, and he can't even see him. Then it's all over for Carl when he catches the business end of this huge broken window pane.
The kiss happens 2 hours in, at the very end of the movie. After Sam saves Molly's life, his earthly business is complete, and he's allowed one final moment with the woman he loves.
Are you two all right?
And it's that moment when she hears him for the first time since he's died.
I can hear you.
The light is shining down on Sam. It is like the light, like light with a capital L, biblical light.
He's able to ascend, but before leaving her, he wants her to know that their love will last for eternity, and it is sealed with one of the most amazing and powerful kisses in movie history.
The kiss is that one moment that you are just wishing they could have again throughout most of the movie, and then you finally get it. I was happy and heartbroken at the same time. It still makes me really, really sad.
And this is the last time they'll ever really see each other. And so, as beautiful and romantic as it is, there's that sort of hugely emotional undercurrent to it also, of them saying goodbye.
It's amazing, Molly. The love inside, you take it with you.
This movie was a colossal hit, and it resonated with people because you want to feel like the love that you have with that one person is something that will last through eternity, that it doesn't end just because your bodies are no longer there. That's what Ghost really captured.
In 1997, Titanic became the highest-grossing film of all time, while tying the record for most Oscar wins at 11, including Best Picture and Best Director for James Cameron.
I'm the king of the world!
22-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio played the free-spirited Jack Dawson, a poor but talented artist. While 22-year-old Kate Winslet co-starred as Rose DeWitt Bukater, a young upper-class woman engaged to a man she doesn't love.
We'll both have the lamb. Rare with very little mint sauce, eh?
You gonna cut her meat for her too there, Cal?
It's just like her soul is just dying. She can't deal at all. She's just like, this can't be my life. I can't do it. And so she's kind of so traumatized by the idea of marrying Billy Zane that she practically throws herself off the back of the ship.
Don't do it.
But then, of course, Jack shows up, and that's how they meet.
I'm Jack Dawson.
Rose DeWitt Bukater.
Who comes along to save her from this life of misery with this hot rich guy? Jack, a hot poor guy.
Why can't I be like you, Jack? Just head out for the horizon whenever I feel like it.
So after they meet, we see them start to spend time together and, of course, fall in love.
If it were just up to her, she would, probably toss Cal to the curb right away and just go with Jack. But she's got this pressure on her from her mother.
This is not a game. Our situation is precarious.
Because the family is in some kind of vaguely defined financial distress. They don't have any money, and this marriage to Cal is going to save them from being on the streets.
You know the money's gone.
Of course I know it's gone. You remind me every day.
So in order for her family to get out of debt, Rose has to marry the rich guy that she hates.
They've got you trapped, Rose. And you're gonna die if you don't break free. Maybe not right away because you're strong, but sooner or later, that fire that I love about you, Rose, that fire is gonna burn out.
So she's got all this guilt and this pressure. I've got to do the right thing. I've got to marry Cal. He may not be my dream man, but I'm doing it for the family.
It's not up to you to save me, Jack. I'm going back. Leave me alone.
The kiss happens less than halfway into the film after Rose decides true love is more important than money.
She looks over and she sees the little girl with her mother, drinking tea, and it triggers something inside her where she realizes that this is a life she doesn't really want and can't be a part of.
He's sitting there looking sort of forlornly over the ocean because he's, sad that this woman that he's clearly fond of is no longer going to be in his life. And she shows up and she's like,
I changed my mind.
And that's all he needs to hear. And then it's just, shh.
They said you might be up here.
Give me your hand.
And the rest is like cinematic history.
Step up onto the rail.
He has her climb up sort of the railing onto the bow of the Titanic, and she's closing her eyes, not sure what's up.
Keep your eyes closed. Do you trust me?
I trust you.
He's positioning her so that when she opens her eyes,
open your eyes.
It's gonna feel to her like there's nothing between her and the water, and she's just gliding. She's flying over the water.
I'm flying.
And so, she's amazed, and then he wraps his arms around her, and she turns and gives him a kiss.
It's so utterly romantic because, God, everything's just perfect. There's like wind, blowing against them. They have these radiant smiles on. It's these two beautiful actors in a beautiful scene. You've got everything you need to make it as romantic as possible.
Even rewatching the kiss, I teared up again today. I think it's the sweetest, whatever. Fine, laugh at me. I think it is the sweetest moment, and it's so well acted, and I just believed in my heart that this was real.
Every time you think of the Titanic movie, you cannot help but think of that one moment. That one moment crystallizes just how beautiful their love affair was.
You want to dance with me?
Sure.
The Notebook premiered in 2004 and soon became one of the most enduring love stories in the history of Hollywood. 24-year-old Ryan Gosling starred as Noah, a blue-collar mill worker who falls in love with the beautiful and spirited Allie, played by 26-year-old Rachel McAdams.
The first meeting between Allie and Noah feels very nostalgic. He climbs a Ferris wheel and says that he'll jump if she doesn't go out with him.
Well, you leave me no other choice then.
Oh my God! Kind of capturing that young romance, Romeo and Juliet, like, you know, I will literally die if I can't be with you sort of feeling. You have this kind of classic rich and poor dynamic. They're from two very different corners of society, and like the expectations placed on her are that she will not wind up with someone like him.
You're leaving. And I'm staying here.
At the end of the summer, she has to leave for college in New York, so she leaves Noah behind. Noah ends up writing her a letter every day.
Every day? Like, I mean, you know, how many times do you write anybody a letter, much less writing someone a letter every day?
Noah has been writing every day for a year, but he thought she was getting them and she wasn't because Allie's mother was the one intercepting these letters.
And like Allie's kind of wondering, like, I wonder why I haven't heard from Noah in a while. Like, oh, it's because your mom is stopping all these letters from getting to you, which, you know, is horrible. Like, thanks for nothing, Mom.
And that basically stops the relationship from moving forward. They lead their own lives. Noah starts building that house, that dream house that Allie wanted way back when. He's still thinking of her. Allie, meanwhile, goes off to college, later becomes a nurse, and meets a wounded soldier who woos her after the war's over, and they get engaged.
I'd like everyone here to know that this young lady and I are getting married.
Allie's about to get married. She's kind of mentally prepared herself for that. And then she sees Noah's photo in the newspaper with the refurbished house. And she literally faints, just as everyone in the audience did, because we're waiting for them to get back together.
The kiss happens at the 82-minute mark of the 2-hour film. After 7 years apart, Allie shows up at Noah's house.
I saw your picture in the paper, the one with you in the house, and I just wanted to come and see if you were okay.
Then the very next day, she comes back for a ride in a rowboat.
Well, we better get going. The rain's coming in.
They take a very romantic rowboat ride together.
It's like a dream.
The light's just perfect. It's in that kind of corner of, like, I don't even know where. It's like the Carolinas or somewhere where, like, you kind of imagine if you were actually there, it might be kind of swampy and it might be like, I don't know, crocodiles or something. But in the movie, it's not like that. It's just great. It's perfect. You want to hang out there forever.
What are they all doing here?
I don't know.
They interact without really saying what they want to say. And it isn't until the rain is pouring and the storm comes in when their emotions also boil over.
It starts pouring rain, of course. So they're soaking wet. They get to the pier. There's a lot of frustration because she doesn't know that he's actually been writing her letters every day for a year.
Why didn't you write me? Why?
She just doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't know why he kind of abandoned her and never wrote her.
It wasn't over for me. I waited for you for 7 years. Now it's too late.
A lot of sexual tension, a lot of frustration, and then there's this crazy moment where there's a huge revelation.
I wrote you 365 letters. I wrote you every day for a year.
You feel this magic and you're like, it needs to happen, it needs to happen.
You wrote me?
Yes.
They finally realize, no, they love each other, and bam.
It wasn't over. It still isn't over.
This is one of the most romantic kisses of all time.
It's beautiful and it's wonderful, and we're so happy because they're back together again.
It's magic. It's magic all over again.
You gotta be kidding me. All this time, that's what I've been missing.
This is the best kiss of that decade, maybe still the best kiss of the 21st century.
It's one of the best love stories of all time because there's so much frustration and sexual chemistry, and it all leads up to this beautiful kiss that we will never forget.